every time I come in the kitchen, you in the kitchen, in the goddamn refrigerator.
I sure am hungry.
Yo, welcome back, everybody, to the Morning Dinner Podcast. It's your boy, Keeman Chuck. I'm just going to go ahead and do your intro. We are two Las Vegas-based creatives and hustlers and entrepreneurs and you know, all that good stuff. And we host a podcast out here in Vegas where we interview and talk to and have conversations with other creatives and entrepreneurs. And today we have our friend Luis Rosa.
What up?
Well, you want to give yourself a little introduction, man, and tell people what you do and who you are?
Yeah, my name is Luis Rosa. I'm a certified financial planner professional. Basically, I just help people achieve their goals, whatever those might be. So I work backwards. You tell me when you want to retire, when you want to buy the house, when you want to be debt free, when you want to send your kids to college, and we just figure out what you need to do today to get there. That's pretty much it.
So your title is a financial planner.
That's right.
What exactly does a financial planner do for somebody?
So a financial planner sits down with you, goes over all your income, your assets, your liabilities, figures out what your goals are in life, and then figure out what you need to do today to achieve those goals in the future.
Okay. Now, one of the common misconceptions for hiring a financial planner is even people like me, sometimes I think of a financial planner and I may think, well, you know what, dude, I've only got $1,000 in the bank. I don't really need a financial planner because I don't even know if I need one. Is there a certain amount of money one should have in the bank before you start investing or looking at a financial planner? What are some key tips that you can give me real quick?
Yeah, you bring up a good point because a lot of people have that misconception. Well, I don't have any money, so I can't hire a financial planner. Mm-hmm. And that's a industry fault, really, because a lot of financial planners cater to people that have money. And that's because of the way that the fee structure is done. And we'll talk a little bit about that later.
The fee structure, that sounds like where everybody makes their money right there.
Sounds like commission.
It sounds like
kickbacks.
It sounds like a lawyer legal thing right there, man. Yeah. Okay, so a financial planner doesn't work based off a commission like a lawyer does, or how that would be set up, or it's completely different?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So some do. There are two basic structures. One is fee only. You hear that term a lot.
Yeah.
Which basically means I'm going to charge you a fee to tell you what I think you should do going forward. And the good thing about that is that you can count on that being unbiased, because if I'm charging you a fee, whether I tell you to do A, B, or C, it doesn't matter because I'm still making the same amount of money.
Right.
There are some financial planners that are commission-based, and then it doesn't mean that they're doing anything wrong. But when you look at it from the client standpoint, you say, well, are you selling me this life insurance policy because you're going to make a commission on it? Or is it really because you think it's the best thing for me? You know, as opposed to me sitting here and say, look, I'm just going to charge you a fee to tell you what you need to do. I think you need $1 million insurance policy, but I'm not selling you that policy. Just go see your insurance broker.
Right. So because you had mentioned to me before the podcast something about being a fiduciary.
That's right.
Can you explain what that is? Because I looked it up, but I'm not 100% sure that I understood it, and I think you kind of touched on what it is, right?
Yeah. So there are two types of financial planners as well. In terms of the fee structure, the fiduciary means that I have a legal obligation to put your interests before mine, and do what's best for you, right? So it sounds common sense, every financial planner should be a fiduciary, right? But in fact, they're not. You know, a lot of financial planners that work for a brokerage firm, for example, they're only held to the they call it instead of fiduciary, they call it where they have to do what's suitable for you. Mm-hmm. So something could be suitable for you, but not necessarily be in your best interest.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of broker dealers, they might sell you an insurance policy or mutual fund or stock, make a commission on it. It was suitable for you, but it may not have been the best thing for you. Mm-hmm. So the fiduciary is one level up and saying, look, regardless of commissions or anything, I need to do what's in your best interest, regardless of how much I'm going to make based on that. Okay. And that's a key distinction from when you look at it from a client standpoint.
And how do you get that exactly? How do you get to that level?
There are two ways. One is if you work for a registered investment advisor. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking up a financial planner, if you look at the website, if it says they're an RIA, registered investment advisor, they're by law required to be a fiduciary. The other one is if you see the marks that, for example, the one I have, certified financial planner, CFP, you're automatically supposed to be acting in the client's best interest just by having that certification.
Oh, damn.
Now, what does IRA stand for?
Registered Investment Advisor.
Registered RIA. I thought you said IRA.
No, that's
that's a whole
individual retirement account. Yeah, we'll talk about those.
I think we kind of we forgot to answer the question where somebody who's asking, I've only got $1,000-$2,000 saved up or whatever. do I need a financial advisor? Do I need someone to manage my money because it's not that much money? Should I get started looking at somebody to help me with this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, financial planners can help you do, even if you don't have money, sometimes even if you have a whole bunch of debt, it's like, what is the best way to get out of debt? How should I pay these credit cards and these student loans off? You might not be able to figure that out on your own. Financial planner can help you figure that out. Should I consolidate my student loans? Should I do a debt consolidation versus just paying off my credit cards one at a time? Things like that. Financial planner can help you with that. It's for everyday people. How am I going to send my kids to college? If I want to save for a house, what's the best way to go about that? What type of loan should I get? Should I do FHA? Should I do a conventional? Things of that sort. So a financial planner could really bring some clarity to people that don't necessarily have a lot of money to invest.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, what was it that made you decide you wanted to become a financial planner?
I feel like there is a lack of education when it comes to money.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Trillion%.
I feel like
can I say real quick?
Absolutely.
Especially in the Hispanic and Latino community, dude. Especially. Real. And I know this firsthand because growing up, we weren't taught a lot of things about money, about debt, about, not owing, about not having to pay installments or monthly bills. Sorry, I didn't mean to distract, but yeah, I agree that there is a lack of financial education out there.
Oh,
yeah, you hit the nail right in the head. But growing up, my parents never had credit cards. My parents never even owned a car. So I didn't know about car loans, credit cards, life insurance.
Oh, wow.
If you ask my father today what a stock is or a bond is, he wouldn't know.
Whoa.
He just worked hard and...
Did he just pay cash?
He just paid cash for everything.
Real quick, did he have a bank account?
He did have a bank account.
Because I have a grandpa who I still to this day, he's 86 or 87. He does not have a bank account. I don't think he's ever had
he just hustles hard.
Yeah, That's crazy.
Yeah, my grandpa had a shoebox with the money in it.
Yeah.
He had all his money stuffed in the mattress. Okay, so that's kind of what triggered you going like, I want to be different and I want to actually educate myself so that I can be better in the future?
Yeah, because I noticed when I was born in the Dominican Republic, for those that you don't know. So I came here when I was 11 to the United States. I had to learn English and then learn the culture and just learn the system here, right? So growing up in the Dominican Republic, it was all a cash-based system. My parents just worked hard and saved up for whatever they needed. They needed a new car, so they just saved up for it, put it on layaway, for example. So when we came here, they couldn't really teach us anything about applying for a credit card or a student loan, a car loan, nothing. Like we had to learn by trial and error. And I feel like in school, you didn't get a education as far as not even how to balance a checkbook. Like that was all new to me, right?
Yeah.
You write it, you have your bank account, you have this balance, but you forgot that you wrote a check 2 days ago. That hasn't cleared. What that money that's available now isn't really available because that check is going to clear soon, right?
Can you explain real quick? Well, what does it mean to balance a checkbook?
So
because I don't think I've ever done that.
Balanced a checkbook.
or is that like an old school thing where you needed to do that back in the day when you didn't have access to like
bank accounts,
online banking?
Yeah, online banking.
That's true. People might look at it like, check, what's a check, right?
Yeah.
So when you open up a bank account, usually you get a check register.
Yeah.
And you get checks, right? So before the internet, you will mail out your payment and write a check to people, right? So to pay your electric, your cell phone, and you put it in the mail, good old snail mail with a stamp. Now you do it online, so it's a little bit more faster, but sometimes those payments might take a few days, right? So when you look at your bank account, say you have $4,000 in there and you just wrote your rent check, it might take 2 days before the landlord gets that check and cashes it. So you really don't have $4,000. If your rent was $1,500, you really only have $25. But you're looking at your bank account, oh, there's $4,000 in there, And some people might just overspend and not realize and then end up overdrafting their accounts because of that.
That makes sense. Damn.
That happens still, though, even with online banking, because if you give somebody a check and they don't cash it, that money doesn't leave your account until then. And it's happened to me before, and I'm like, oh, damn.
Low key,
I thought I had this much more.
I don't think I've, other than like rent, I don't like when I had to do this when I was living out in Cali. I don't think I've ever written somebody a check before, bro.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's funny?
Especially now, more recently in the last 5 or 6 years, it's always just Venmo me, PayPal me, or Facebook Messenger, send me some money through there.
And it was so funny because like this house, they only accepted checks for some reason. They just made an online portal for it, but I was like, yo, I don't even know how to write a check. Yo, I had to look on the internet on Google. I was like, how to write a check?
You got to pay for these?
Right.
You got to write down the whole number? I was like, what? I was like, all right.
Routing number, what's that? What's that?
Right. And, even in today's society, when we have Venmo and PayPal and all that, you still need to balance your check because a lot of us do auto draft, right? You might have your cell phone coming out directly out of your bank account like every 20th of the month and your cable, things like that. And sometimes we tend to forget those auto drafts are coming. So when you look at that balance, so basically balancing your book is just keeping track of, all right, I have this balance, but I also have these checks or auto drafts that are coming due. So you know your true balance before you write a check or take money out.
You see, I do like a lightweight version of that where I basically I have like a spreadsheet with how much everything is due on each month. So I know roughly, like, based on what day of the month it is, I should have this much in my bank account to cover everything. Because it is like you said, sometimes you don't notice, like, yeah, you might have $1,000, but here comes a couple bills that add up to $1,200, and next thing you know, you're overdrafting and all that stuff. So yeah, dang. So balancing your checkbook is still necessary, you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you don't need to use a physical register. If you could use a spreadsheet or an app, that's fine. There's a lot of apps there, like Mint, for example.
Oh, Mint bills. Yeah, I use that. Yeah. I use that. Yeah. You know what? That's actually going to tie into another question that I had for you. And it was going to come down a little bit down the road, but since we pull it up now, why not ask it out of the way? How do you feel about apps like Mint or like, what's it called? Albert. There's an app called Albert that allows you to, like, it's not a financial planner, but it does tell you, like, when you're spending too much or when you should cut back. It helps you set goals for how much you should save if you want to have a goal. Let's say I want to buy my niece a birthday present and it's in 2 months. It'll help me, like, make little goals, like, okay, you should put away this much every paycheck to kind of help you save up for that. How do you feel about those? Do you think those kinds of apps are kind of tackling the field that you work in, or do you feel like they're good for people?
No, I think they're good for people. Yeah, I refer people to a lot of apps myself because they serve a purpose. In the financial plan, budgeting, for example, is just one aspect of it. So if you can find an app that helps you keep on track, then it's gonna just be more successful for your plan.
Because I don't know, something about me with, like, I download all those apps, I just couldn't. I didn't like them. I was like, I like typing it into my own spreadsheet, and I can, like, literally see, so I know. And it just also is better for me because it keeps me in routine. Like, I'm finally starting to save all my checks and everything and my receipts and taking photos. So I'm just trying to get into that because I don't know. Sometimes I be giving money to my mom or something, and it's like, oh, you overspent. I was like, oh shit, no, I'm giving.
Yeah, because you didn't plan on.
Yeah, that's gifting
that
money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so let's talk about that then. Do you think somebody like a creative person, as far as like a photographer or somebody who runs their own business, they should definitely have a financial planner?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. One of the major things I see with people that are self-employed is that they forget to send tax estimates so you end up till the end of the year, you get your 1099s, right, from a whole bunch of different contractors. Yeah. All of a sudden it's like, holy moly, I owe this money in taxes. So one of the things I do with people is figure out an estimate of how much money they're going to make at least quarterly, and then send a chunk of that to the IRS. So that way, when you go to file, you don't have this huge tax bill at the end of the year.
Okay. So it's basically like paying taxes, but instead of doing it in 1 year, you do it 4 times a year.
Right.
So you estimate, like, okay, let's say I average $3,000 every 3 months or 4 months or whatever it is, then you would tax that amount and you would withhold that amount. And then would you send it to the IRS then, or would you send it at the end of the year?
Yeah, you send it quarterly. So you can actually go on the IRS.gov and make a payment then and there. Because when you get that 1099, right, you're not getting taxed on your money as a self-employed person. So I say, you know what, don't wait till the end of the year, because if you put it aside, you're probably going to spend it on something, right? Marketing, whatever.
Yeah.
So
that's
just
true.
take like 25% of what you make, put it aside every quarter, and just send that check into the IRS, or, go online and pay.
Yeah.
I was watching Dave Ramsey the other day, and he mentioned how, man, my voice is like cracking up. He mentioned how people essentially spend more money nowadays using a debit card than they used to back in the day spending cash.
Right.
And the mentality behind that is that when you give somebody cash, let's say you're at a restaurant and the total is $20 plus tips, so you give them $20, $25, that money paper's not going to come back to you. But if you give them a debit card, that debit card, it will come back to you, right? Like, they will bring it back and you will have it. So there used to be this mentality of like, okay, I'm going to give you $20 in exchange for this food or for those shoes. Now it's like you're giving them plastic, and at the end of the day, you get the shoes and you also get your plastic back.
Right.
So I think that there's like a crazy study.
Yeah.
It's a psychology thing, but there is a study that says people spend on average 60 to 70% more at fast food restaurants.
It's easy too, because you just
Yeah.
Slide your card,
Yeah,
especially if it's
swipe.
credit cards.
Yeah.
It's just like, oop, don't even have to like type in a PIN code.
As
It's
opposed
like,
to carrying around like, you know, a stack of bills, and then you're like, okay, now you're gonna, you know that when you give somebody that money, that you're not gonna get those bills back, you know. So yeah, it's definitely a whole psychology. Let's talk about real quick. People who have regular jobs, they're not creative people. They're more, you know, they're working a 9-to-5 job, or maybe they have 2 jobs. Their job sometimes gives them a 401k. Can you explain what a 401k is to somebody out there who doesn't know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who maybe is already enrolled in one, but they just don't know.
Right. Well, if you think about it, people back in the day used to work one job, retire with a pension, right? And that's it. So like they work for either the fire department, police department, whatever. So there's still some folks that do get a pension if you work for the government, for example, right? Military.
Now, is the pension different than a 401k?
Yeah, pension's different because the pension is going to be a monthly check for the rest of your life once you retire, right? The 401k is money that you're putting away yourself in lieu of a pension, right? Because the employer is no longer saying, look, when you retire, we're going to guarantee you money for the rest of your life. They're just saying, hey, here you go. Here's a portion of
what you already gave us.
Right. And that's it. Whatever you have at the end of the whatever work time frame you worked, then that's all you get, right?
So real quick, a 401, what is it? 401k?
401k
is basically a savings account.
Yeah, it's a savings account for your retirement. The advantage of it is that you get to put money in there pre-tax. So for example, if you make $60,000 a year and you put $5,000 in your 401k, you're only going to get taxed on $55K because the government wants to incentivize you to save. So whatever you put in your 401k, you're not going to get taxed on today. But it is a tax ticking time bomb because it's tax deferred, not tax free. So when you retire, whatever you have in there and you take out, then it's going to get taxed at your tax bracket then.
Wait. But so, because I'm going through this right now where I have a 401k, and it says that if you withdraw early, they charge you penalties. And then second of all, they charge you the taxes of whatever the tax rate is. But they say it's not supposed to be tax free after 59 and a half. So wait, so you're saying they do charge you taxes after 59 and a half?
That's right. So you could never escape the taxes, right? So the only thing you could is after 59 and a half, you don't get hit with that 10% penalty. So if you quit a job and you take that 401k, you take the money out before you're 59 and a half, you're going to pay income taxes plus a 10% penalty, right? If you wait until 59 and a half, they waive the penalty, but you still got to pay income tax. So you got to figure out, do I want to pay taxes on the seed or do I want to pay taxes on the harvest? Right. So because there are other ways of saving where you can pay with after tax money, like a Roth IRA, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up.
Yeah. That was going to be the next question.
So yeah, let me tell you a little bit about it. But so if you have a 401k, the first thing you want to figure out is, does my employer match my contributions? Right. Because if they do, then you want to contribute at least that amount. So for example, when you first get hired, they tell you, look, we have a 401k and we match dollar for dollar up to 5% of your base pay. Right. So that means if you put in $100, your employer is going to put another $100.
Dang, that's a dream.
Yeah. So if you do have that matching capability in your 401k, you want to contribute at least up to the matching amount because it's free money, right?
Yeah.
And then usually there's a period where that money becomes yours. It's called vesting. So you would see, oh, it's a 2-year vesting. All that means is that after 2 years of working there, if you leave, you can take all that money with you. If you leave, the contributions from the employer, your contributions are always yours to keep. You could always roll them over to a new IRA or a new employer 401k.
Okay.
Now, those follow you to any job that you might have in the future? All you need to do is pull up your social security number?
Yeah, just usually provide them with a most recent statement, and you can roll it over into the new employer's 401k.
Okay, so just so everybody out there who's listening who doesn't know what rollover means, it means if you have a 401k with your current job and then you go work somewhere else, you can roll over the balance of what you have in that 401k to your new job, right? Because that account will no longer, it won't be your current account. You'll now start investing into a new account. Now, why would somebody want to roll over? Would it be just to just so they can have all their money in one place, or do people need to roll over? Or can they keep it in that account, or what?
They don't necessarily need to roll over. It depends on the employer. Sometimes some employers, if you leave, they allow you to keep the 401k with the custodian, right? So that whatever company that was managing it. But there are fees involved. So sometimes if the fees are too high, you're probably better off rolling it over.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they just don't give you an option. Say, look, you have 60 days after your unemployment with us. You got to roll it over. So you have two options. One is roll it over to a 401k of a new employer, right? That does not create a taxable event. So that's the good thing about it. You could just literally transfer the money from one party to the other without incurring tax. Usually you want the companies to do it directly so that the money never hits your bank account, because then you trigger in the tax event. Well, now the money, if you do take the money out with you, you still have 60 days to roll it over. And you could do that once every 12-month period. But you run the risk of, perhaps dipping into it a little bit, right? Or some plans require 20% automatic withholding. So if you had 10K, they might only send you 8. And now if you only roll over the 8, you're going to have a $2,000 tax liability, right?
Yeah.
Income. So it's better that you just do a direct transfer from one to the other.
Good
so the other thing you could do, if you're not rolling it over to another employer, you can open up your own IRA at whatever banking institution, or if you open up a brokerage IRA somewhere, you can roll that over into your own IRA.
Now, an IRA is an investment retirement account?
It's an individual retirement account.
Individual retirement account. It's the same thing as a 401k, except it's not provided by your job?
Correct, yeah. In essence, same, pretty much. So most of the rules are the same. There are some exceptions that are more advantageous in an IRA. For example, let's say you want to buy a house. If you have money in an IRA and you take it out before you're 15 on a house for a home purchase, they'll waive the 10% penalty for that home purchase. Or let's say you're going to college, you can take the money from the IRA and not pay the penalty. You still got to pay income tax on it though, but it waives that 10%. On 10,000, it's $1,000.
Real quick, Chuck, do you think we can move his microphone real quick?
Yeah.
I think just a little bit higher.
A little bit higher.
Yeah, just a little bit higher.
Right there.
How's that?
A little bit higher. So I don't think it's going up any bit.
It's strong.
Do you mind just real quick? You see that metal thing right there? Just loosen it up real quick.
Wait, higher?
Yeah, I want that microphone more in front of his mouth because I'm getting a little bit of echo in the room because he's a little bit. He's like up here.
How's that?
So, yeah, right there's perfect.
That's good.
Right there's perfect.
All right,
yeah.
awesome.
There you go.
Okay,
Perfect.
cool.
Sorry.
Nah, it's so good.
I just want everybody to make sure they have the most pristine audio.
Yeah,
for this is really good knowledge.
So so going back to IRA and all that, how many different types of mutual funds are there out there?
Oh, there are thousands and thousands of mutual funds. Yeah, absolutely.
Or is a mutual fund the same thing as a 401k?
No, so the 401k is just the vehicle, right? The mutual fund is going to be what you actually put your money into. So once you have a 401k, usually your job is going to give you with a menu pretty much of saying, look, these are the 30 different mutual funds that you can put your money into.
Okay.
And what a mutual fund is basically pooled funds. So for example, instead of buying an individual stock, let's say you want to invest in technology.
Yeah.
Instead of buying, say, AT&T stock, you can buy a technology mutual fund that has 30 stocks. So it might already have Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, Google, Amazon, right? So you're diversifying your money within that pool of funds. So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Okay. This is a really big rabbit hole. And I feel like before we even talk about that, I think we should maybe attack when people put money into the 401k or the Roth IRA, what is happening to that money? Because it's not just a bank account that's just sitting and not doing anything, right?
Right.
That money is being invested into stocks, bonds, and what was the other one?
Wait, 401k does the same thing?
401k does the same thing,
Okay.
yeah. So
Good to
stocks,
know.
bonds, and something else.
Yeah, stocks, bonds, real estate, international stocks.
So people's money is then getting invested. So is it possible that if somebody, let's say somebody's working somewhere for 3 years, they have $12,000 in their 401k, is it possible that amount goes up and down depending on how the market's doing?
Absolutely, yeah. So you can earn or lose money in it depending on how you invested it. Yeah, some of the 401ks usually will give you a safe option.
Yeah.
So you have all your money in a fund that maybe just makes a little bit of interest, kind of like the bank.
Yeah.
But you're not invested. Most of the time, though, you're gonna get a list of at least 30 mutual funds that you can put your money in. That's gonna vary between stocks, bonds, real estate. So it's gonna fluctuate with the market.
Now, is the default for everybody like 90% stocks, 10% bonds, or something like that?
Well, no, you get to choose that.
Okay.
Usually, once you start a 401k, they give you an option of all these funds. A lot of the times you don't get guidance necessarily. It's just, hey, here's a menu. And again, that's where like a financial planner can help you say, look, based on your age, your risk factors and things like that, this is how much stock or bonds you should have in your portfolio.
Yeah. So is it better that, like, depending on your situation, you might want to invest more into stocks than bonds?
Yeah. So typically the younger you are and the more time you have between today and your retirement date.
Just do 100% stocks.
High risk.
You want to be diversified even if you're going to be aggressive.
Right.
You do want to have a little bit of bonds and stocks and things that are not necessarily tied to the U.S. market, for example, international stocks and things like that, because not everything goes up or down at the same time. So you want to have, so just to give you an example, if you go 100% stocks and you have $10,000 and the market goes down 50%, you're down to $5,000, right?
Right.
How much of a percentage would you need if you have 5,000 to go back up to the 10,000 you had? 100%, right? So if you had 10,000 and you lost 50%, you're down to 5.
Yeah.
But if you have 5 and you want to go up to 10, you need 100% return.
Right. So it's even riskier.
Right. So you want to be diversified, because if you have all your eggs in one basket,
yeah,
it's going to be a lot harder to get back up there.
Right. And that's something that even though we're not super financially smart about things, we know diversifying your money is always a good way to, that way in case something doesn't happen or something crashes, you're not completely screwed out of your money,
Yeah,
right?
because you didn't put everything.
Right.
Right. So if the market's down 50, maybe you'll be down 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going back to the 401k, then should people, because everybody gets auto enrolled into a 401k, and do people need to have that option when they have a job, or can they opt out of a 401k and then do their own?
Yeah, you can opt out. So most employers will automatically opt you in. Usually you have a 45-day period, 60 days, depending on the employer, to go in and opt out of that 401k.
Now, every year you can opt out?
You can opt out initially when you first do it, and then you just never be in it. And then if you decide to go in it later, you have that option of always opting out.
Right, but okay, so then if you start a job and then you opt in, let's say 3 years down the road, you want to opt out of it, can you do that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's always something to consider. What I tell people is, look, if you're getting some type of match from your employer, then you want to invest at least that much, because then for every $200 you're putting in, they might be putting in another 200, right? So take advantage of that free money, especially if you plan on being there long enough.
So you mentioned there were thousands of mutual funds in a 401k when you start picking out what you want. What is some advice that helps somebody pick a good one?
Yeah, well, in the 401ks, you're going to be a little bit more limited, because when they're designed, you usually get just a menu of maybe 30 mutual funds or so. So it's a little easier to choose. When you open up your own IRA, then you just have every mutual fund available out there.
Okay.
So when you have a mutual fund inside the 401k, you're going to have maybe just probably about 30 choices, which is still a lot, right? So you got to figure out what percentage you want in bonds, stocks, and all that.
Okay.
So normally, if you don't have a financial planner, what I recommend that people do, one of the mutual funds that are usually available in 401ks, they're target date funds, which are based on a year of retirement. So for example, let's say you want to retire in the year 2050 or close to it, more or less, give a few years. There's probably going to be a target retirement fund 2050 in that mutual fund. So you just put your money in there. It might be like 80% stock, 20% bonds at the beginning. And as you get closer to the year 2050, it's going to automatically rebalance itself to become more and more conservative. Sell the stocks.
So is that like an index fund then?
Yeah, it'll be like an index fund. So that's a good way of going about it, because now it takes the guesswork out of it for you. You just put it in one thing, and the mutual fund is going to rebalance itself.
Yeah.
It's going to get more conservative as you get closer.
Wait, see, now I sound smart because that's an index fund. So an index fund, basically, I ruined everything, George. So an index fund basically takes your money and rebalances depending on how the market's doing?
Yeah, so if you buy a straight index fund, you're going to, let's say you buy an S&P 500 index fund. The S&P 500 usually has about 500 or so stocks, usually the major stocks in the U.S. So you're going to get the full brunt of the market up and down. So it's very aggressive, right? So the target date fund might have a combination of index funds, but it's going to be diversified so that it might be like 80% stock, 20% bond. So it might have 2 index funds in there, maybe 3 or 4. So that you're investing some like in international, some in the U.S. stocks, some in bonds. So you're not all in just the S&P 500, for example.
All right. What about cryptocurrencies?
Oh, man.
I had to bring it up.
I knew that was coming.
I had to bring it up.
Well, I'll tell you this. Look, cryptocurrencies right now, the only way you can make money is if somebody else is willing to pay higher than you did for it.
Right.
Yep.
Because there's really nothing behind it. Like if I were to give you an actual Bitcoin, if one even exists, what's it worth, right? Usually when you buy a stock, there's a company behind it selling a product, making profits with employees and stuff.
Right.
So every quarter or so, they're going to have some sort of profitability that you can count on, right? That you can track, whether it's up or down. But cryptocurrency, like what is it, right? There's no really backing behind it.
Have you ever heard of a company called VChain?
I have not.
Okay, so there's this company called VChain who uses blockchain technology, and they have their own cryptocurrency called VET. And basically what it does is they actually do create a physical product.
Right.
So what they're looking to do is essentially put blockchain into retail, which is the wine industry, clothes, car industry. So they want to put blockchain into all these things.
Gotcha.
And that's one of the things that I'm looking into right now. And they're actually really like, it's really interesting. I don't want to get too into it but I do want to say that there are some companies out there. There are thousands, and a lot of them, I would say 95% of them are just garbage. But there's a lot of companies out there who are doing things. But yeah, I'll agree with you when you say it's very risky and it's very volatile. And if you're not, and this is what I always say is never invest more than what you're willing to lose.
That's great advice. And that's one of the things I tell my clients. Look, let's not put your retirement savings to this, but you want to buy $2,000 worth of, Bitcoin, whatever, knock yourself out, right? Just open up a separate account, but let's not put like all your Roth IRA funds into it.
Yeah.
So what's your ratio for like percentage wise when it comes to your income per year and putting it like,
in terms of investing?
Yeah.
I usually tell people at least on the low end, you want to save 10% of your money.
10%.
Right? Because if you think about it, if taxes went up 10% today, you're probably just going to pay them, right? Because you have no choice. You just live with the less money, right? So I feel like pay yourself first. Just take 10% of your income, immediately put that away, whether it's 401k, Roth IRA, whatever, right? And then the other 90, pay your taxes and do the spending.
Got it.
So 10% goes into, because I already have, I think it's 5% of my actual paycheck goes to my 401k. But then I try to take out at least like 10% of it. Chuck, I thought you used to tell me like 20 or 30%?
What?
Of 30% of your income you should be investing.
I can't remember what I said.
Yeah.
I just kept a lot.
That's a good number.
Yeah.
You could do 20.
I mean, the thing is too, like you should also do it accordingly. Like if you make a certain amount of money and your expenses are very low, why not, right?
Right.
But then again, if you have a ton of bills and you're left with $120 in your bank account at the end of the month, you should probably not do that.
Right.
Okay, we kind of went through this question, but like, is there an age that somebody should be thinking about getting a financial planner to start investing? Is there like an age limit? Like, does someone need to be 18 to hire a financial advisor or planner? Or?
No, there's really no age limit. I mean, you can start whenever, but what I usually say, base it on your goals. Right. So a lot of people don't necessarily need a financial planner. They might just be in cruise control. They're working, putting money in the 401k. They have no debt and they're just saving money. That's fine,
Right.
But once you get changes like a new job, even people that are young, they just graduated and it's like, all right, what is a 401k? What is matching?
Yeah.
Right. What funds should I choose? Right.
Right.
So a lot of those things you're not going to get any guidance from. So it's better to hire somebody that at least is going to give you an unbiased opinion. Right. So I usually base it more on your goals or any life change that you have. Like,
can we name some examples of goals that maybe the common person might have?
Yeah, absolutely. Like say newlyweds, they're like, we want to have kids in the next 2 years and then buy our first house. So now we got to figure out, well, how much of your income is going to go towards those two goals, depending on how much you make and your time frame, right? Are we going to put 5% down on that house? Are we going to do 20% down? Should we put 20% down, right? How much do we need to send our kids to college 18 years from now if you already have kids, right? These are the kinds of things that everyday people need to figure out. And a lot of the times you just don't get any guidance from it. Even retirement, sometimes we don't think about it, especially when we're young. If you're in your 20s, you're like, man.
No, retirement sounds like...
That's like the last thing in your mind.
Like it's never going to happen, But if it's one thing I learned is time doesn't slow down for anybody.
And it creeps up real fast.
It creeps up real fast. And next thing you know, you're 28 and you're like, okay, what's a 401k again?
Right.
I need to know this.
A lot of us, unless you're like a cop, fireman, or you work for a state or a county or something, we're not going to have a pension that's a guaranteed income.
Right.
So we need to, on our own, create our own
pensions,
right? Our own golden goose is going to have a big enough lump sum that we can draw money out of. Because you don't want to live on Social Security alone, right?
Oh, no, yeah.
Like my parents live on Social Security, right? And I've seen it. Like, yeah, they can eat, right? But they can't drive a nicer car or go out on a whole bunch of trips because
it's not going to allow them to basically move up higher, faster. You know what I mean? Like get a better car, but get a bigger house. They're going to be basically...
They're going to flatline
right
at that point.
That's that's one of the things I've always felt about retirement is like, I've never been one that wanted to retire because first of all, I'm addicted to like working and doing things. I couldn't imagine just sitting down doing nothing all the time. But I mean, it's just like, I don't know about you, Chuck, but...
My whole thing with that is I just want a good amount of money when I get older, just not only for me, because I know I'm going to have kids one day, and I want to take care of my mom and dad. I want to take care of my brothers if they need help, or just anybody around me. And yeah, I just want to live comfortable and still work every day, because like him, I don't like chilling.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to try to work as much as I can, because it's just fun. But I still want to travel as well. Yeah,
I think it's good. It's good information for somebody to have a financial planner, just because. And I'm gonna look into I might actually be hitting you up right after this. Yeah. Just because I've always thought in the back of my head that having a financial planner is a luxury. It's kind of like you need to be, first of all, you need to be making tens of thousands of dollars a month to have somebody that's even interested in looking at your money. Because how do financial planners get paid? Like, is it based on percentage? Is it based on a monthly commission? Like, how does all that work?
Yeah, so there are two types of ways that financial planners get paid. The traditional planner that you think about when you think of a financial planner usually manages money for a living.
Yeah.
Right. So they charge on average about 1% of whatever assets they're managing. So for example, if I manage somebody's $500,000 portfolio, right, IRAs or whatever, I'm going to make $5,000 a year from that person, right? 1% a year. So a lot of planners, what they do is they provide financial planning for those types of clients in order to get those assets under management, because there's going to be a recurring fee every year, right?
Right.
So ultimately, if I manage $20 million and I'm charging 1%, I'm making $200,000 a year, right? So a lot of planners, because of that structure, they don't want to talk to the guy that has $10,000 because, 1% is only $100. So I don't want to make $100 a year.
Right.
I'd rather talk to the guy that has $500,000, right?
Right.
So a lot of people that are regular working blue collar people that don't have $500,000 miss out on all that planning. But now there's a lot of young financial planners that are working with people based on a fee as opposed to based on a percentage of your assets under management. So some people charge an upfront fee, like it could be, say, $1,500 to put a plan together, right? Some others do it in a subscription style every month. So you could be like, $500 upfront and $75 a month, So depending on the planner, they'll work with you based on a fee. So that way you don't have to have money invested necessarily. Because a lot of people make money, but they don't have the assets yet.
Right.
Right. So you could still hire a planner even if you don't have that lump sum to invest.
Okay. Yeah. Because I would imagine, though, what if you're somebody who does have like a $5 million asset and they're like, oh, no, I want to pay $75 a month.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine somebody doing that?
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I guess you could.
But okay, so how does one assume their is that when you meant like their total assets? Do you mean like their net worth? Is that what you're getting the percentage, or a financial planner will be getting their percentages off of? Is it like their entire net worth, or when you said their assets, do you mean like how much they have in their account sitting like ready to cash out?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. It depends on the planner. Some planners charge a fee based on their net worth. Yeah, and some planners charge a fee based on the assets that they actually manage for the client.
Now, when you say assets, what do you like? What does that mean to the common Joe?
So that would be, let's say you have an IRA, right? Or you have money to invest because you had an inheritance, or you just saved up a whole bunch of money in a mutual fund or something. So a lot of the times the financial advisor would want to get those assets to manage under their umbrella and then charge you like the 1% fee or so.
No, that's 1% every year?
Every year, right.
Okay.
Got it.
So now would it be the responsibility of the financial planner to help them grow that money as much as possible?
Right.
I would imagine it would be in the financial planner's best interest, right? Because if, like, let's say you can increase, I don't know how it all works, but like if you can increase that $500,000 to $1 million, then your fee next year would be a bigger percentage, right?
Then I'll be making 10,000 instead of 5. So the interest would be aligned, because then if I'm charging you a fee based on how much money you have, I want to grow those assets, because then the more you have, the more I make.
Now, when you say the financial planner charges a fee, do you charge that like to the client as far as like take that money out of your bank account, or do you take it out of the assets?
The common way of doing it is coming out of the assets.
Coming out of the assets?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll just see when you get your statement, you'll see like, all right, beginning balance 50,000, and then it'll see like the whatever comes out, it'll be like advisory fee, etc. And then and the balance.
And a financial planner doesn't get charged those penalty fees for withdrawing from that account?
No.
Wow.
That's tight.
Loopholes. I'm gonna become a financial planner, guys. That's interesting, man.
I mean, I did want to go back to one thing, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. So there's a difference between a mutual fund. I mean, just a regular IRA. Wait. Is it Roth IRA?
Yeah. So the Roth IRA, it's kind of opposite to what we've been talking about with the 401ks.
Yeah.
You pay into it with after-tax dollars. So right now, the current limit for IRA contributions is $5,500 a year.
Yep.
Or $6,500 if you're age 50 or older. They let you do $1,000 catch-up. So the way it works is you get paid, you pay your payroll taxes on it, then you contribute that after-tax dollars into your Roth. And the good thing about it is that money now gets to grow tax-free. If you hold it for at least 5 years after age 59 and a half, whatever that account has, you can withdraw it all tax-free. Your money's always tax-free, but the gains will also be tax-free if you hold it for that period and wait until 59 and a half, as opposed to the IRA or the 401k where you're going to pay taxes at an ordinary income.
Right. Now, when you say gains, you're talking about capital gains?
Yeah, like whatever. Yeah, so when you invest it, whatever growth you have, capital gains, dividends.
Now, how would the money grow? Does it grow with the market? Is it like...
what's like the normal percentage for like,
it depends on what you invested, right? So you're going to have the same options, actually more in a Roth, because if you have a Roth IRA, you're probably going to have it with, let's say, a Fidelity or Schwab or E-Trade or whoever. You have access to pretty much every mutual fund or stock out there. You can buy Apple, right? You can't do that in your 401k because usually you're limited to that menu. So it depends on what you invested in.
Right.
So in any tips, would you just let the person like who does Roth IRAs handle all that, or as a person should you pick all those? Right.
So you can open up a Roth IRA, let's say, with a brokerage account, any of those, right? Fidelity, whatever, right? Usually you don't get an advisor with those. They just charge you a commission based on trades. So you buy your own stuff. A lot of people will buy it, right? And they just like put money in Facebook and
they download the Robinhood app.
That's right. So you can do that, do it on your own and just pay a commission based on whatever you buy and sell. Or if you don't like buying and selling, you can also hire somebody like an advisor that's going to charge you 1% a year, and then they're going to choose the investments for you and put them into a portfolio based on the conversations that you have, your risk factors and stuff. If you don't have somebody like that or don't want to pay that fee, I always recommend that you buy like the index funds that we were talking about. Yeah. The ones I recommend, usually there are two. You can do either a target date fund that's based on a retirement date, like a 2050 fund, for example. So it's going to invest as if you need the money in the year 2050. Right. So you don't have to worry about it. You just buy that one thing. It might have 6 funds in there. It's going to rebalance itself as you get closer. Or you can buy what they call a target risk. So let's say you decide, look, I want to have 80% stock, 20% bond. There's a target risk fund out there that invests 80-20 all the time. So you just put your money in that one fund and it's always going to buy and sell within it to always be more or less at the 80-20. So you don't have to worry about, it takes the guesswork and also the emotion out of it. Right. Oh, wow. Because if you do it on your own, if you think about it, if you want to be 80% stock, 20% bond, and the stock market is doing well, and now you're at 90% stock, 10% bonds, right? Because the stock went up. Right. You have to sell the stuff that's doing good. Yeah. Right. And as a human being, you probably don't want to do that. You're like, I'm gonna just hold on to this.
Damn emotions.
That's how people get wrecked.
Right. The FOMO.
So when you say like a target fund, is this like a group of people who are predetermined to retire by a certain year, and that's what that fund goes into? Right.
So it's going to invest the money as if you're going to retire based on that date. It doesn't mean you have to hold it until then. You could always sell it right before then, Yeah. But when you initially purchase it, if you buy, let's say, a 2050 fund, it's going to invest as if you need the money in 2050. So you have, say, 32 years from today. So it's going to be mostly aggressive because the way it's going to be invested is as if you don't need to touch that money for 32 years. So you're probably going to have at least 80% stock in that particular fund. But as you get closer, the fund is going to get more and more conservative. So in the year 2042,
because you don't want to be as risky.
Right.
So I just want to say another thing too, because mutual funds are based off the market, correct? Yeah. So if, let's just say, a recession happens or the market crashes, I don't know how to really explain it. Would that affect you long term or short term, or it's completely dependent on basically the market?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you can open up your statement and you have a loss in your portfolio because depending on what you invested in. For sure.
Yeah, I've logged into my 401k, and I've seen sometimes I've seen the red markers where it shows like negative, like this is how much you lost.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but it's super conservative. Like it's not even it's at 90-10, I think it is.
Well, that's aggressive.
Yeah, that's aggressive, man. And even then, like it hasn't. I haven't lost that much, right? But we also haven't been through a huge decline in the market.
Right. If you had that same porportfolio in 2008, you probably would have lost close to half of it.
Yeah.
47% or so.
I might be rebalancing soon.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that based on your question, what happens is if you have a 401k, let's say like in your case 90-10, you open up your statement and the market is down and you're down $5,000-$10,000, right?
I don't even want to look at it right now.
So. At that point, right, you lost money in your portfolio, but you don't make that loss real. Like you don't realize that loss until you actually sell, right?
Right.
So if you panic at that point and say, look, I can't stand this, I'm going to sell that fund and go into the conservative fund, well, now you really made that loss real.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
you lost that money for good, right?
For sure.
So if you had, say, $10,000 in your 401k and it's down to 8, and then you sell and you put the $8,000 that you have left conservative, right? When the market goes back up, you're going to get a percentage based on the 8, not on the 10, because you already made that decision to sell, right? So a lot of the times, if you have a goal that's like retirement and it's a very long-term goal, you should be able to ride out the market,
and it'll balance back out.
Yeah, historically it has, So normally, if you have long-term money, it's okay to take a little bit more risk than let's say if you have money for a down payment and you're putting it in the market. Probably not a good idea because you could be down in 2 months and now your 30,000 down payment is down to 22.
Yeah,
and you don't have money for closing costs. So
right. That's what I always say about crypto, man. Is like you put it in there, you're putting it in there for a while. Yeah, because like I said, like look at how Bitcoin went from $20,000 in December to where it's at 6,200 right now. It's gone down. It's lost.
And that could happen from Friday to Monday, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and in the same reverse, it could go up the same way, right? So that's the big risk. The only thing is we don't know when it's going to happen. So that's why I always say, like, whenever something goes down, I try not to stress it too much because I know people need to get into the mindset of it's going to be a long term. The more risk you put into it, the more your mindset should be that I'm not going to cash this out anytime soon.
Right.
Unless the next day it triples, all right, cash it out. But if that's not the case, most likely you're gonna see it go up and down, and you shouldn't try to play that game of like, okay, I'm gonna try to play the market and see if I can cash out. If it goes up, if it goes up 2%, cash out, and then wait for it to dip 3%. Like
that's that penny stocks, man.
Oh, that's that day trading, man.
Right.
I mean, there's definitely a market for it if you know how to do it. But if you're not not well versed in day trading, I don't think you should do it.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah.
And once again, don't be too emotional when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah,
you got to learn to let go.
Do you subscribe to Dave Ramsey's thought that you shouldn't invest until you've canceled out all debt?
No, actually, I do not. There's a lot of stuff from Dave Ramsey that I do like his budgeting system.
Yeah.
But that particular aspect, I don't feel like you should wait until you're debt free to start putting money away.
Right.
Because you can miss out on the compound interest on that investment.
Now, what's compound interest?
So let's say you have $1,000 invested in something that generates 10%, right? So 10% of 1,000, right? So you're gonna get $100. So now you have 1,100, right? And then when you make another 10%, now you're making 110. So it just keeps snowballing in your favor. Right. You ever had a credit card balance?
Yep.
And you see when you open that statement, if you pay the minimum, you'll have grandkids in college, right?
Yeah, man.
So it's the same effect. The compound interest is your enemy when you owe money, but it's your friend when you're investing.
So what gives 10%? What investment?
There's nothing out there that really gives you 10% fixed. There is one thing in the military, when they get deployed, they have a deposit savings account that gives you 10% guaranteed up to $10,000. But outside for a civilian, there's really nothing else that's guaranteed.
I think 6% is pretty much the goal, right?
I would say usually when you're making like projections for your retirement things, work with maybe 6-7%, more or less. If you're gonna invest like in a 60% stock, 40% bond portfolio type of thing, just to be on the safe side, right? Because anything else.
They say Roth IRAs are what I read on the site, but is it 8 to 13%?
If you invest in stock historically, they have generated that much, but like when I do projections with people, I don't like to work on what the numbers have done, because if you go on 12 and that's what you need to make it work, and then you get 8, you're gonna have to work a few years more or whatever, right?
I get it.
So I'll run a scenario maybe like 6, 7, 8, and say, all right, if these numbers work, then if you get 9 or 10, you could retire sooner, spend more in retirement, right? So it's a happier scenario.
Now let's. I want to get your personal thoughts on this real quick. Do you think we're headed for a recession anytime soon?
I think so right now. I mean, you look at interest rates rising. You have a lot of talk with trade wars with China and things like that, and a lot of market. If you look at the last 2 days, we've taken quite a beating, right?
Trust me.
Everything
I know.
So it's hard to tell, But I feel like, it's inevitable because it goes in cycles, right?
Yeah.
So you just gotta make sure that whatever you invested in, if it's a long-term thing, when that does happen, you don't want to panic and sell at the low end.
Yeah.
So for me, since I'm buying a house, if you have the money, buy or rent, in your opinion?
So if you have the money, it depends on lifestyle, because there's been a lot of studies that compare both. And because you're renting, a lot of people sometimes say, oh, if I'm renting, I'm just throwing money away. But not necessarily, because if you compare the amount of money that you're saving by not owning something, if you actually invest that money, you might be ahead, right? And it's also a matter of lifestyle, right? There's a lot more things that come up with,
like if you're traveling a lot more and whatnot.
Home ownership is like you have your mortgage, right? Property taxes, homeowners insurance. If the AC breaks, you have to fix it yourself. You can't just call maintenance, right? So that comes into play. But if for those people that are thinking that they have to own something, they don't necessarily have to. You could do very well by renting and investing the difference, right? If you could. So it's just a matter of personal preference.
Got it.
We actually have a question. Ed Diesel wants to know, Mr. Rosa, let's say I have a $10,000 to $15,000 in debt. Do you recommend concentrating on paying off that debt before saving money, or should one pay it off slower as one also saves? And I think you kind of just answered that, right?
Yeah, so I would look at the overall picture and say, all right, let's say you're a W-2 employee and you have a 401k. If there's a match in your 401k, let's not contribute to your 401k to pay that debt, right? Let's at least take advantage of that match, and then whatever else you have left, we send it to the debt.
Right. And in the long run, you're looking at, if you're looking at the long term of things, then you're ultimately going to be making more money if you do invest in that, because of the 100% contribution or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. If employer is matching your contribution up to 5% of your pay, right? Let's say that's $200. They're going to put in another 200. So you're automatically getting 100% return, even if you don't invest it, right?
How rare is that, though? Is it rare for an employer to contribute that high of a percentage?
No, it's pretty common. I've seen employers go up to about 5-6% usually of the base pay of the employee.
Does yours do that? Do you know?
If it's 5-6% and I'm contributing 5%, then yeah. But I haven't, to be honest, I haven't checked.
Got it.
Where could someone go to find out?
You want to download the plan document.
The plan document?
Yeah.
So I have Vanguard?
Yeah.
I have Vanguard. So I just go to Vanguard.com, log in, and there should be like a plan document?
There should be a plan document, yeah. So it'll tell you the percentage that the employer matches. The other thing you want to look at is the vesting period. What that means is, legally, when is that money yours to keep, right? So a lot of employers, to give you an example, because they want to retain you as an employee, so they use that as a strategy. They might say, look, we're going to contribute up to 5% of your base pay, but that money is not yours until you have 5 years working here. So we're going to give you 20% per year, right? 20, 40, 60, right? Whatever. And then once you make the 5 years, that 100% is yours to keep. So you might see your statement, it says balance 20,000, and then you'll see vested balance 16,000. So you know that you haven't been there long enough for that additional 4 to be yours to keep. So that's one of the things you want to look for in the plan document. What is the vesting period? Because that might help you also decide if you need to switch employers. You might want to just hold out a little bit longer if you're close enough to that vesting period, so that all that money is yours to keep.
Right.
Damn, that's so much.
Now, there's two types of IRAs too, right? There's traditional and Roth.
Right.
So what's traditional?
So traditional is kind of like the 401k. Whatever money you put in there, you're not going to get taxed on today. So in essence, it comes off of your taxable income dollar for dollar. So if you make $60,000 and you put $5,000 in IRA, you're going to get taxed today on $55,000, right? Which is great, right? Because you're taking $5,000 that you normally would have gotten taxed on and use it as a strategy to lower your taxable income today. But then the flip side to that is that when you retire, that money is going to be taxable at whatever tax bracket you're in then. So you kind of have to figure out, am I going to be in a lower bracket when I retire? A lot of people think that they are, but that's not necessarily the case.
So it's a gamble.
Yeah, because tax rates could continue to go up, you know.
Depending on who the president is.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our national debt right now, it's in the trillions of dollars, right? That's got to be paid somehow, right? So they're probably just going to hit us for it, right? So, and you know, I've seen retired couples that are in the same tax bracket or even higher when they retire. Like I have, a couple that has 2 pensions and Social Security each, you know. So when you add up all that money, it's not a lower bracket than they were when they worked. So that's one of the things to consider. So the Roth IRA is the flip side to the traditional, where you pay taxes on your money today, you contribute after tax money, and then it gets to grow tax free as long as you hold it for 5 years and you take it out after 59 and a half.
But with Roth, you can take out what you've put in, correct?
Correct. So your contributions are always taxable, tax free back to you, because you already pay taxes going in. The earnings in that could potentially be taxable if you take it out before 59 and a half. Yeah. So if you hold it until 59 and a half, you'll have that whole pot of money to take out tax free.
I love looking at the calculator. I'm like, ooh, I can make 1.5 million. I'm like, damn.
Depending.
Yeah, I know.
Time's on your side, right?
Yeah.
The sooner you start, the better.
It's kind of like how they say if you save $100, if you save $100 every month for like, forgot who it was, Dave Ramsey who said it, $100 a month for 30 years, 35 years or something like that,
Yeah.
you will end up with like $1 million.
Yeah, and that's because of the compound interest.
Compound interest.
Yeah, it just snowballs on you. So you make interest on top of the interest, which is the opposite when you owe, right? You see that credit card?
Yeah.
You borrow 10,000. Yeah, you end up paying back 32.
I have another thing I wanted to ask, because there's a lot of people who think that keeping money in your savings account is a way of you being able to get money for having money, right? Like you gain a compound interest or something like that. But is it too low, do you think, for people to consider that as an investment strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. As an investment strategy, it's going to be too low. Let me give you an example. How much was a gallon of gas in 1990, roughly? Take a guess.
In 1990, I couldn't imagine it being
98
more
cents.
Yeah, you're man.
Yeah?
This guy's good. Yeah, so it's right about $1, right?
I'm gonna say $1. Yeah.
Damn.
Think about this. Let's say my grandfather, going back, right?
Yeah.
He had $1 in his shoebox. He left there since 1990, and he goes over today and opens up that box. How much does he have in there?
$1.
$1. Can he buy a gallon of gas today with that $1?
Damn.
No.
Hell no.
Not at all, right? If he were to put it in the bank at like a 2% rate, let's say, even on, which is
It's incredibly high.
right, incredibly high,
For a
right?
bank, yeah.
He still wouldn't have enough. It'd probably be like $1.20 something, right?
For that long of a time.
For like long, yeah. And
you would have to have billions and millions of dollars for you to be able to,
Yeah,
for it
to
to
see
make, and
anything.
even then, there's way more places that you can get a higher return.
Yeah. So when you have money in the bank, ideally, I always tell people you want to have 3 to 6 months of whatever your monthly expenses are as reserves to have immediately accessible for whenever you blow that tire or your engine goes or your HVAC unit in your house, right?
Right.
You want it easily accessible so you don't worry about the interest. But anything above that reserve, you want to put it somewhere to work because inflation is going to be the enemy. You're going to basically lose purchasing power in that money.
Wait, so you said
Damn,
3 to
that's
6
deep.
months of expenses saved in your savings account for emergencies,
Right.
and then outside of that, that's when you can really start thinking about like, okay, now I'm gonna put 10,000 into this investment.
Yeah, because most people, when you look at the U.S., are just like one paycheck away from being in a tragedy if they miss that one paycheck.
Oh yeah,
You know,
a lot of people is like, man, if I don't get my 3-6 hours extra overtime, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, so imagine somebody that gets laid off and they don't find another job just 1 month.
Yeah.
You know, and their expenses were $3,000 a month. They have to go in debt, right? Borrow money from people,
Right.
just to make ends meet. So if you have that 3 to 6 month reserve, it'll carry you through that transition period without adding to your debt balance, right? And then once you get the new job, you could always rebuild it. So you want to do that at least that 3 to 6 months to give you that cushion, and then anything above and beyond that, you're going to put it to work somewhere.
That's good to know. And how much should you, just all of it? Anything you make past that 6 months?
Yeah,
Like
so
most of it?
Yeah, you'll create the different buckets. So it might be like, all right, I want to buy a house in 2 years, so X amount is going to go into that down payment fund. So it's going to probably be a little bit more conservative than the money I have in my retirement account because I could take a little bit more risk for money I don't need until I'm 60, right?
Okay. What's a third party custodian?
So do you remember Bernie Madoff?
Yeah.
Right?
Damn, I haven't heard
Wolf
that
of
name.
Wall Street. No, is that him?
No, he wasn't the Wolf of Wall Street.
okay.
But Bernie Madoff, what he did was he stole his clients' money, right? That people thought they were investing the money.
Right.
He actually had it in a JP Morgan Chase account. Like he wasn't even investing the money, right?
Right.
So a third party custodian is a company that has literally custody of the funds. Like they hold the funds away from the advisor. So for example, if you invest money with me, I use one of the custodians I use is Fidelity, and I use Schwab and TD. So your money will be at Fidelity or Schwab or TD, not with me. So I don't have actual possession of your money, so I can't steal your money because I'm only allowed to buy or sell within your account. But I can't call Fidelity and be like, hey,
I need $30.
yeah, send me Chuck's, $1,000 to you. They wouldn't do that.
Okay.
So you want that protection. So when you're working with a financial planner, if you are going to invest money,
Make sure they have something like that.
ask them like, who's your custodian? Because if they don't have a custodian, then
Watch out, yo.
that's a red flag right there for me.
You're gonna get Bernie Madoff.
No, that's hella good to know because I didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah, we have a buddy who made a rap song, and he was talking about BitConnect being a Bernie Madoff situation. And BitConnect was essentially this cryptocurrency exchange
Gotcha.
where people would buy that currency, that BitConnect currency, And literally they held all of it. So like once they got as much money as they wanted, they dumped it, and everybody was left with their, if they invested like 1,000, they ended up with like 25 cents.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
And I think that guy's, I don't know if he got arrested or if he.
That has to be like what is it? Like when national crime or some shit like that.
Oh, dude,
like
no, he's on the. I think he's not doing well. I know. His wife recently got.
Yeah, that's federal.
No, I'm saying like she got hit, like.
Oh damn.
Murdered.
Oh.
Yeah. So somebody's out to get him personally. So I don't know. That's a dark situation.
That is.
Don't do that.
we actually have a question from listener Brenda. She's from She comes from Twitter, and she asks, from a professional standpoint, what are some useful tips you've received in regards to saving money?
Hey, Brenda. So thank you for the question. I always recommend, so the first thing you want to do is have that 3 to 6 months reserve, right? Like we talked about. The second thing is, if you are a W-2 employee, look at your 401k, see if your employer matches. And if they do, then you want to save there first because it's free money, right? So you want to take advantage of that full match. And then anything above and beyond that, you want to put into some form of investment. Your 3 to 6 months reserve, a lot of times you could use one of those online bank accounts that pay a little bit more interest than your local bank because they're still FDIC insured, but they don't have a whole bunch of branches everywhere, so they could afford to pay you a little bit more interest, right? But even that interest is not enough to keep up with inflation, so you want to invest it somewhere. If you don't have a planner, for example, you just open up a brokerage account and buy like an index fund that's invested either based on a target risk, like 60-40 portfolio, like 60% stock, 40% bond, let's say, depending on how aggressive you want to invest it, or pick a target date based on how long you plan on retiring, like 2050, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of websites where you essentially lend out your money in groups of people? So like, let's say like somebody needs a $10,000 loan, you would literally give them like $100, $50, and it'd be a group of people. And then you receive interest on that money. Do you advise websites like that?
I've heard of those, yeah. I don't. I feel like it's a little bit too risky, and you could probably take a better risk somewhere else because you don't know what's like the credibility of that individual behind.
Yeah. Because you never meet that person.
Right.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's true. I never thought about that.
It's good for families. Well, no, you can't even trust families.
Be careful, man. Those Hispanics family, bro.
Stop putting Hispanics down, bro.
I'll stay away from lending money to family.
She also wanted to ask, what would you recommend for someone who has no knowledge in investing, IRAs or mutual funds? Are there any local workshops or anything of that nature that you know or recommend? Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old.
If there are local workshops?
Yeah, are there any kind of like local resources, or would you just say like talk to a financial planner?
No, I would say there are websites there, like for example, saveandinvest.org. You can go there. It's free, and there's just a ton of information there about, and it'll be a lot of the basic stuff, compound interest, IRAs. You just break down pretty much all the financial terms. Investopedia.com as well has a lot of good information on financial literacy in general. So I would start there. Sometimes local libraries might offer some sort of program too, but I would start probably going online, maybe like saveandinvest.org.
Use your resources, your free resources, man.
For sure.
And then her last question was, I am seeing a lot of my peers cashing out their 401ks when they are in a bind. A lot of times I get tempted. What's your professional advice on cashing out a 401k?
Right. So when you cash out a 401k, you're going to pay ordinary income tax on that money, plus a 10% penalty.
How much is the ordinary income tax?
So it depends on your tax bracket, right? Okay. So
anywhere from...
Yeah, it's going to vary, right, depending on how much money you make. Because ultimately what's going to happen is whatever you make plus the withdrawal on that 401k is going to get combined together at the end of the year. Okay. And that's what you're going to get taxed on. And then an additional 10% penalty on the amount you withdrew. So I would recommend, if you want to take that money out, heavily consider rolling it over into an IRA, because that's not a taxable event. So, let's say you had 20 grand in your 401k, but you only needed 10. Don't take the whole 20 out and put it in the bank, because now you created a $20,000 income, right? So do a rollover into an IRA, put the whole 20, right? And then just take out the 10 that you needed. So at least you kind of minimize the taxes depending on how much. So you only get taxed on the amount you took out. Don't just wipe it all out and put it in the bank.
Are there different situations for cashing out a 401k? Because I recently looked into this. And one of the options was first of all, a lot of your jobs won't let you straight up cash out your 401k. Like if you've been there less than a certain amount of time,
Right.
what they'll let you do is they'll let you take out a loan against your 401k.
Right.
So you essentially take out a loan against yourself. So like, let's say you have 10,000 in your 401k and you want to cash out the 10,000. They, first of all, a lot of them only let you take out like a half.
Yeah, you're gonna be limited to 50%.
You're limited to 50%, and then you have to pay yourself that back, and they take it out of your paycheck, right?
Yeah, so
with interest.
With interest, yeah. So
with interest.
that would be a better strategy than just having a hardship withdrawal, because when
Yeah.
you do a withdrawal, a lot of 401k companies let you do that. They call it a hardship withdrawal. So let's say you came into some hard times, or you're buying a house or something, they'll let you take the money out, but then that might become taxable. So if you could do a loan, that doesn't become a taxable event, and you
Right.
can borrow up to usually 50% of the balance.
Wait, so if you had 10,000 and you were able to cash out 5,000 in a loan, they don't tax that amount that you withdraw?
No, they do not. Yeah, it's
But you
considered a
still
loan.
pay some sort of fee, right?
Yeah, you're gonna pay interest on that. It's gonna vary by the plan, but it's typically pretty low. Probably like maybe 3% at most, depending on the plan.
And I think when I was on the phone with this person that was talking to me about it, they mentioned that there being a $45 to $90 fee for like the agent who actually helps you out doing
Right.
all that. So that's
Yeah.
always good to consider.
Something to consider, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And another, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't even know if my job has a 401k. Like, how do you check
I'm
for
pretty
that?
sure you do.
Do I?
Yeah, I would talk
I
to.
don't know.
Talk to you.
Yeah, ask HR for the benefits package, and they
Damn.
usually, when they give you like your healthcare insurance and all
Yeah.
that, they'll tell
Can you
you
see
if
it
they
on
have-
your check though? Will it say it on your check?
It
Or your
only
pay
if
stubs,
you're
or-
contributing already to it. Then you'll see like the deduction. When you look at the deduction section, you see
Do
federal.
you actually get a pay stub from your job?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I don't even remember. I don't remember.
Because I know,
seeing
like
anything on it.
for my job, there's a website I can go to, Paylocity, and I can log in and I can see the gross income that you make for that month, and then they show you how much they take out for taxes, retirement, and all that stuff.
Let me
Right.
see.
Yeah.
You guys keep talking. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
look at the
check.
plan document.
Chuck finds out he got $60,000 in his wallet.
Imagine that.
I would.
He'll be ending the podcast a little sooner.
I'll be right back, y'all.
Okay, so what's this other? Do you have any tips for people out there?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I always tell people, everybody has the B word, right? Budget. Like everybody hates the word budget.
The worst B word there is.
Yeah, people like the word budget as much as they like the word diet, right?
Ooh. Preaching to the choir, man.
I love budgeting.
But here's the thing. A budget doesn't mean that you have to be restricted, right?
Yeah.
Like the U.S. government has a multi-billion-dollar budget, right? So it's just a matter of allocating your funds. So one of the tips I always tell people is pay yourself first, right? So do that, say minimum 10% of your income, then pay your bills and everything else with the difference, right? The second thing is allocate your funds based on things that aren't necessarily bills. So create a bucket, if you would, for everything that, let's say people buy holiday gifts, vacations and things, they're not bills, but they usually keep up on you. And then you don't want to wait till November to figure out, I gotta buy some Christmas gifts, right? So if you know that you're gonna spend $3,000 a year on vacations, you want to spend, maybe $250 a month into a separate savings account that's gonna be kind of like your fund, and you're gonna just act like that was a bill and have it automatically come out of your bank account, and just throw it in there. That way it doesn't creep up on you. That's the first thing. Just make sure you want to allocate your funds that way, right? The second thing I do, which is going back to the Dave Ramsey question you had before, was one of the things I do agree with him about is the envelope system, where you take money out for certain like expenses, let's say miscellaneous expenses for yourself, personal allowance for just like hanging out on the weekend, grabbing drinks, whatever, because you can't overspend physical money, right? If I give myself $75 allowance and I run out of it by Thursday, then that's it. I'm out. But if I have my debit card, I'm just gonna, if I wanted to spend $50 in dinner, and it's 65, I'm still gonna give him that plastic anyway, right?
Yeah.
But if you have physical cash, you might be like, hey, you know what? I won't have the second drink. Or I might skip dessert, whatever, right?
And guess what? You're also gonna give them an extra 20%.
Right.
Instead of the 15%, you're gonna give them 22%.
Do they have bank accounts where it's locked and you can't touch it? Or is that's risky?
Well, you could do, let's say, like a certificate of deposit, a CD, where they kind of lock up your money for a certain period, and then they give you a higher interest rate than you would have on a regular bank account as a result, because you're locking in your money. So you could do like a 12-month CD, but you still do have access to it, though. They're just going to hit you with a penalty. So you have kind of like deterrent. So the penalty, so it kind of like out of sight, out of mind. You can just put it in a CD, put it aside. But then, if you do touch it, you're going to get hit. You're going to lose some money. Yeah.
That's good to know, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also debt-wise, you said don't don't wait till you're debt free?
Yeah, don't wait till you're debt free, because if you have credit cards and student loans, I mean, that might be 8 years, right? Especially those people that have student loans. Usually those student loans are on a 10-year repayment plan.
Oh,
You don't want to wait 10 years to then start putting money away for retirement, right? So start small, even if it's, $50 a month, whatever it is. Yeah, don't wait till you're debt free to start investing.
well, what's a good what's some good advice you would give to somebody who is looking to consolidate their student loans? Like where do they go to do something like that?
So I would do studentaid.gov. They usually have a good feature where if you have, let's say, government loans, you can log in there and it'll tell you the different payment options for all your student loans if you were to consolidate them. There are options based on your income. So if you make less money, it's going to give you a lesser payment.
Income-based repayment.
Yeah, there's one that's graduated payment. So you pay a little less now and it just gradually goes up every couple of years.
Yeah.
And then there's like a fixed term. So I would start there first.
Yeah. There's now you can't consolidate loans, different types of loans, right? Like let's say you have regular student loans, but then you also have Parent Plus. You can't combine those, right?
Yeah, if you let's say you did a personal loan at a bank, you can just do a debt consolidation loan. You could have multiple different kinds of debts, car loans, credit cards, and stuff. But most of the time, a bank is not going to give you too much money in a personal loan because the debt is unsecured, meaning that there's nothing back in it that they could take away from you if you default.
Yeah.
So you can't get like $100,000 personal loan because,
damn it.
yeah, if you default, there's nothing to come after, right? Except maybe your paycheck.
Yeah.
So
wait, do they still do that if you don't pay your student loans? Do they still what's the word for it? They take money out of your paycheck.
Oh yeah.
What is that called?
They're gonna garnish your
your wages.
A lot of the times also the other thing they could do is garnish your tax refund.
Ooh,
So if you owe money,
I've heard of that happening when somebody goes bankrupt.
Yeah, and if you owe, you can't get rid of student loans, not even in bankruptcy. So
Unless you die.
yeah,
And even then they're gonna look for the next
Yeah, they're gonna be like,
yeah. So you could,
who else has your DNA?
right?
that's so
You could
crazy.
potentially forfeit either your pay or your actual tax refund if you fall behind. So you're better off negotiating something, even if it's $50 a month, just so that keep them off your back until you can fix the situation.
Now you had some advice as far as your tax refund, being smarter with your tax refund. What advice did you have?
So let's say that if you're getting a huge refund at the end of the year, right?
What's huge?
Like let's say you're getting $10,000 at the end of the year.
Damn,
Right?
people get that much?
Yeah, there's some people that do get that much.
People who make $8.25 an hour and have 10
I mean,
kids.
I'm from New York, so yeah, coming from New York, there were people that were getting that type of refund, right? Because the taxes are very high, and at that point, before these tax changes, you were able to like deduct mortgage interest and stuff. So if you're getting a big refund like that, one of the things that I always tell people, if you think about it, you're giving the government an interest-free loan because that refund is money that was taken out of your paycheck for the most part during the year, and that you're just getting it back, right? So it's not like the government is giving you money; they're just giving you your money back that they withheld from your paycheck. So if you have a big refund like that and you have other debts or the goals, you might want to consider maybe raising your allowances on your paycheck so that they withhold less taxes and you get more take home. And you get lesser of a refund at the end of the year, but then you have the extra money per paycheck that you could use towards like paying that off instead of waiting for that big chunk of money.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
Smart.
But some people might need that refund because it's forced savings. Because some people might not be able to.
They don't have that many expenses during the year, but there's kind of like a vacation fund or something, or they are big splurge fund or something like that. Okay. That makes sense.
It's kind of cool how you can tackle financials. It's like it's basically up to the person and their personality.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's customized to the individual.
So I was gonna say one thing. I can write off my house, correct?
So yeah, that's a good question. So under current law, right, you can still deduct your mortgage interest. And let me tell you a little bit what a deduction is. Right. So a deduction is literally money that comes off of what you make to arrive at your taxable income. So for example, let's say that you make $60,000 a year and you had $5,000 worth of tax write-offs, right? So that $5,000 deduction comes off of your $60,000 taxable income. For example, contribution to an IRA, right? Or a 401k. That's going to be a deduction from that 60. So if I contribute 10 grand to my 401k and I make 60, I'm only gonna get paid on a tax on 50 because I contributed 10,000. So that it gets deducted from my income. That's what a deduction is, right? So
the more you contribute, the less you get taxed.
Exactly. Okay. So right now, if you're contributing to a 401k, you could do up to $18,500 if you're under age 50 per year. And
that's a lot.
Yeah. So if you do that, let's say a couple can do if they're able to do it, 18.5 each, you're talking about $37,000 that they could just not get taxed on today.
Yeah.
Right. Well, going back to your question, there's something called a standard deduction. So the government automatically, let's say for a married couple, just to give you an example, a married couple can take off $24,000 of their taxable income off the bat. That's on the house.
What?
Standard deduction. So $24,000 you don't have to pay. Now, if you have deductions like mortgage interest and property taxes that add up to more than that $24,000, you can do what's called itemizing your deductions. So let's say you contributed, let's say you had $20,000 in mortgage interest, $5,000 in property taxes, that's $25,000, and you donated $5,000 to charity, that's $30,000. That you can take off from your taxable income as opposed to the standard deduction. So you get to take whatever number is bigger. But now with the new tax laws, let's say married couples, $24,000, a lot of people, especially like here, you might not reach the $24,000 figure with your mortgage taxes and property. So you might end up being $18,000 with your mortgage interest and property taxes. Then you just take the standard deduction instead. So your mortgage interest could potentially be deductible as long as it's bigger than your standard deduction. And then you would just itemize.
Damn, I'm going to be listening to this podcast over and over again, man.
Hit me up, man.
So I just hit you up, bro.
No, yeah, definitely, yeah.
I need help.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be recommending people to you because this is a lot of information that I feel is lacking out there, man.
Definitely.
And one thing too, do you direct, do you do CPA work or would you direct somebody?
Yeah, so I have, it's called an enrolled agent certification. It's an IRS certification that allows me to pretty much act just like a CPA or a tax attorney would. I could even represent people before the IRS. Not my favorite kind of work.
Yeah.
So I do it for some clients, but usually, I work with other like CPAs and attorneys because also you have to think about, I can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I want to have my niche focus. All right, let's save money and, talk to this guy, or here's 3 numbers of CPAs that you can call. Right. So it's something to consider too. A lot of financial advisors usually have somebody that they can refer if you don't already have somebody.
And another thing too, do you have to be, because you can't just go on the internet and sign up for a mutual fund, right? You have to go through somebody who's licensed, or
No,
how
not
does that
necessarily.
work?
You can open up a brokerage account. Yeah. So you can go to let's say E-Trade, Fidelity, whatever, and just sign up.
How about Betterment?
Yeah, Betterment.
Betterment.com.
Betterment. You can go to Betterment.com. And Betterment has a lot of good products too because they have a lot of those index fund based, very low fees.
Yeah.
And they also rebalance automatically and all that. So you don't have to be super savvy, and they take all the guesswork out of it for you. So that's a good place to start too.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and you could just do it online.
But what about a Roth? Like if I want to start one?
Yeah,
Betterment has a Roth IRA.
Betterment has Roth too.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
they have an iPhone app.
yeah, you can invest your money the same exact way in a traditional IRA, a Roth, or a brokerage account. The only thing that changes is the taxation of it based on how you title, right? So whether it's a Roth traditional or a joint or a regular after-tax account, you can invest in the same thing. Yeah, so like a place like Betterment, you can go there and open up a Roth or a traditional or just a regular brokerage account. Yeah.
Now, you had mentioned maxing out your what's it called? Your Roth IRA every year.
Yeah, so think about it this way. Right now, the government gives you the ability to put up to $5,500, and then after age 50, you could do $6,500. There are some income limitations, like if you're married, after you make $189,000, it starts phasing out. But if you're under those rules, if you max out the $5,500, I mean, just think about the fact that one day you're gonna have this big lump sum that you could just withdraw money without paying any taxes on. So, do you want to pay taxes on the seed, or do you want to pay taxes on the harvest? If you think about it this way, so I'd rather pay taxes on the $5,500 as it comes out slowly in my paycheck, and then just let that ride for the rest of my life. Hold it till 59 and a half, and it'll be all tax free.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. This is my goal to do that, is start the Roth IRA and just put in the full amount per month.
So then somebody should do the math of based on how much they get paid, you multiply that by how many times you get paid in a year, and if that adds up to $5,500, then you're good.
Yeah, you could do it systematically. You could do a one-time contribution. You can do several, so there's no limit. You don't have to set it up to come out per paycheck. And the good thing to know about it too is that the IRS gives you until the tax deadline to contribute for the prior year. So for example, you're going to have until April 15, 2019 to contribute towards a Roth in 2018.
So if you get your tax refund in January, February, you can contribute that lump sum to your Roth. Was it your Roth IRA?
Yeah, exactly. And you can, or your regular IRA too, your traditional.
Right.
And it'll be you'll get the same amount as if you did at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the tax period?
No.
Okay.
because the investment is going to be
Different.
based on when you put the money in, right? So if you wait till the end of the year or tax year, you miss out on that compound interest, right? So ideally, you do want to invest it ahead of time, but there are times when you don't know if you could afford to contribute to one, especially if you're self-employed, right?
Yeah.
You want to figure out how much taxes you owe and all that, and then, but that is a good option where you wait until the end of the year and figure out, all right, I can max it out, and then you could just tell let's say the custodian, whether it's Betterment or whoever, make this a 2018 contribution. So that's the way I'll go about it.
Oh, see, this is all the stuff I'm learning because I didn't know if I wanted to do month to month or just go in like put in 3,000 and then just go month to month, or put in 2,000 go month to month, or just put the whole 55 in.
You could do it however you want. Yeah, there's no restrictions on how much you should do. You could do it all in one shot. Yeah, a lot of people just wait till tax time and just send the whole 55. Or some people just do, like, one of the things I have some of my clients do, for example, if they could afford to, I have them do $500 a month from January through November, and that's the $5,500 right there. And in December, that $500 they use for like Christmas gifts or something. So they're used to that $500 already coming out, so it doesn't affect their lifestyle.
Huh, it's pretty smart.
That's so tight.
$500 a month from January to November.
Right, that's 55 right there. And then the December withdrawal, let's say December 1st, you use that for Christmas or whatever.
Yeah. How do you feel about apps like TurboTax or like those services?
Yeah, those are good. I feel like, if you have just like a straight up W-2 job, you could do well with a TurboTax. You know, it's pretty user friendly.
Right. But if you're doing a lot of investing, if you're doing a lot of donations and things like that, things that you could have tax deductible or written off, then you would advise talking to a financial planner about something. Yeah,
or a tax professional, CPA or something, enrolled agent. Yeah, because the app for TurboTax, you're not getting the actual advice, right? It's just like enter this in this box, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that you might miss out on, like, knowing when the deadline is for a Roth or something. Maybe it won't tell you that, right? So if you have a lot of investments or properties, things of that sort, I would recommend at least talking to a CPA or an enrolled agent or a financial advisor.
Do you think property is like one of the best investments you can make? You
can do well with property too, but there's going to be risk in everything, right?
Yep.
So a lot of people put their money into, let's say instead of a retirement account, they'll buy a property with the possibility of that property going up over time, just like the stock market would, right? And maybe generating some income in the meantime from a tenant. But the market could go down, especially here. You guys remember 2008?
Yes.
Right? Your property is not necessarily going to go up in value all the time. Or what if you miss a tenant, right? They just move out and you take 3 months to put somebody back in there. Now you have 3 months that you have to pay that mortgage, right? So there's going to be risk and everything. But yeah, you could do very well doing real estate investment. That's one way you could diversify your portfolio. So
it's the poor man's best investment, because most people can do it.
We had somebody ask on Instagram, best tip to buying a house, when to start saving, how much to save, so you don't understand that's part of this question.
Right.
Depend on rooms.
Got it. Yeah,
like
I think I know.
Roommates, like boarding.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah, so they don't have to rent out the
roommates.
rooms.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, so one thing I usually have my clients do is, let's say we figure out how much they could afford, right? Or how much of a house they want to buy. And what I have them do is practice paying the difference between their rent and what their mortgage payment is going to be. All right. So let's say you're renting right now and your rent's $1,000 and your mortgage is going to be $1,500. I would say let's save that $500 difference and act as if we have that mortgage today before you commit to it. Right.
Proof of concept.
Yeah. And if you do that for a year or two things are going to happen. One, you're going to prove to yourself that you could do it. Right. So you'll know what it's like to have less money every month.
Oh, wow.
And number two, if you did, let's say $500 a month, every year is $6,000. So by year two, you have your down payment money right there, or your closing costs, right? Sometimes people can qualify for more than they could afford, because when you go to a bank and they run your credit to see if you qualify for a house, they're only going to use your gross income before taxes.
Right.
And they're going to count against you only the minimum payments on your credit report. So they don't take into account your child care and things that don't come up on your report. So I always tell people, be careful with that, because you could qualify for more of a home that you could actually afford. So just because the bank says, hey, you're pre-approved for $300K, doesn't mean that you should go out and buy.
You should get a house that's $300K. Yeah. Smart advice there. Is there a certain amount that somebody should have in the bank before even thinking about buying a home? Should they have at least like $5,000-$10,000 ready to go, cushion, or
Yeah, and that goes again with that 3 to 6 month cushion. So whatever the mortgage is going to be plus your other bills, make sure you have 3 to 6 months in there. Because right now there are programs so you can buy a house with little to no money down.
Which is
right?
what?
Like the Federal Housing Administration, the FHA loan, for example. Or if you're in the military, you could do the VA loan. You could buy a house with no money down. A civilian could do it with 3.5% down, which is not a lot. And some states like Nevada have a down payment assistance program where they'll give you up to like 5% of the home cost. So you could get into a house really with no money down. But just because you can doesn't mean that you should, right?
You should, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Ramsey's always talking about is if you're in debt or if you're broke, you shouldn't be buying a house because it's only going to put you more in debt and make you more broke.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to make sure that the only bills are the mortgage and your regular utilities. You don't want to go into the house and have a ton of other debt on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I always preach too is like you can't really help other people until you help yourself.
Right.
So it's like you need to make sure that you're good as far as like your finances go before you even start like giving other people money. You know,
absolutely.
And, like, take care of yourself first, so that way when you do help other people, you're not like, oh crap, I could have used that, $200 or whatever it was.
That's a good point. You want to give from a position of strength.
Yeah,
for sure.
I like your whole. Do you want to was it pay taxes on the seed of the harvest?
Right.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, because think about it. When I always use this extreme example with people. I say, look, if today you gave me an option to have $1 million in an IRA or $700,000 in a Roth, and I had to take them both out, right? Which one would I choose? And I tell people I'll take the $700,000. And a lot of people are like, why would you take $700,000 over $1 million, right? But let's say I were to take that $1 million IRA out today.
Yeah.
Right. That's going to put me in a very high tax bracket. I'm going to pay at least half of that in taxes, right? So it's going to put me down to $500K.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay a 10% penalty because I'm not 59 and a half. So that's another $100,000.
Yeah.
So now that $1 million is down to 400. And if I live in a state that has state tax, like California, for example, I'm going to pay another 10, 13%, right? Depending on the state. So that $1 million could be like 450 when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Right. With that $700,000 Roth, if it's mostly all my contributions, they're going to be tax free, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously that's an extreme example. Nobody would probably just cash out $1 million IRA. Yeah. But I use that just to illustrate the point.
That's smart.
Wow.
So one of my last questions is there a certain amount of expenses, like for example, when you're buying a house and you're looking at mortgage and how much it's going to cost, is there a certain amount of your actual income that you should be spending on your mortgage? Like let's say you make a certain amount, what percentage of that should go to your mortgage or to rent?
Yeah, on housing, usually, just to give you an example, when the banks qualify you, they usually don't want more than about 41% of your gross income to go towards your debt. So they'll take based on your gross before taxes, but that's usually the formula that's used. Because anything over that, you're probably going to be overextended. Most of your regular expenses, including your mortgage, shouldn't exceed about 70% of your income. And then you have maybe another 20% for car loans and credit cards to service debt and save the other 10. Usually rule of thumb. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you want to make sure that's why I always have people do that exercise where they could just save the difference between the mortgage and the new, the current rent versus the new mortgage. Yeah. Just to see if they could really do it.
Yeah. I used to do a micro version of that where I wouldn't necessarily do that to that extent, but I would be have you ever heard of this app called Acorns?
Yes.
Yeah. Where you would basically round it up to the next dollar and then would take that money. Next thing you know, I had $200-$300.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Never even realized it was getting taken out 25 cents here, 60 cents there.
Bank of America did that, and I was like, oh damn! Before you know it, your savings account has
those apps are good. I always recommend those because you can always set rules for yourself and say, all right, round up. If I spend $480, then just make it $5 and put that 20 cents into the savings account, and little by little, it's gonna add up. Absolutely. So you could use apps like Acorn to at least get started. So you don't have to have a whole bunch of money to start.
Yeah, for sure.
You could just start literally with penny, right?
Yeah. Do you have any more questions, Chuck?
No, that was. How do you feel about car debt?
Oh man.
Or buying a car, purchasing a new car, or should you just get a used car?
Yeah, well, normally, if you look at how much value a car loses after you bought it, right? I could probably get a 3-year-old BMW right now, probably cheaper than a new Honda.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at it.
Yeah.
Right. So, financially, it's usually better to just buy a certified pre-owned, right?
Right.
And then hold it for a long time, right? So one of the things I always have my clients do is usually when they buy the car, have a hypothetical car payment. So that way, let's say you finance a car for 4 years, you're done paying it off, but you still keep making that payment, quote unquote, into an account so that the next car you just buy cash, right?
Right.
But it's also a matter of lifestyle. I know a lot of people that might be self-employed, depending on their business, they might need a nicer car to impress clients or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, all right, you're going to do a lease, but realizing that the lease is not necessarily the best option because it's a long-term rental, right? You're not going to own anything.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you know, a lot of decisions aren't made necessarily based on dollars and cents, but financially, you're better off just owning instead of leasing.
Did you know that when you lease a car, you're not only paying for what it's costing them to take back the car, but you're paying the price of the car of what the retail would be for it, but then you're also paying for the amount of depreciation in that car. So when you give it back to the dealership, they're actually making money off of that lease. Yeah,
you're paying for the depreciation basically. Yeah. And a lot of places too, when you return it, they might hit you off for some fees too if you have a little nicks here and there.
Oh yeah, if you went over 12,000 miles,
Yeah, so it's definitely not the most sound financial decision.
Yeah, I always say like a car is always, it's 90% of the time I feel is like a emotional thing.
Yeah.
People do it because they want to have that car.
Yeah, a car is really not an investment unless you had one of those classics, right? It loses value immediately after you drive it off the lot. Yeah. You throw money at it every single month.
Now, can we let people know how much value it loses? I think I heard it like a term where it's like in the first 4 years it loses 60-something% of its value.
It loses its value right as it goes off the lot. It loses value.
It's big.
Oh, really?
You can go to like the kellybluebook.com. and you'll see like the value of cars. It's ridiculous, man. It's just not. It's not really an investment.
Well, yeah, but the moment you take it home, it's a used car.
Right.
Literally.
You can bring it back. Yeah, second day.
You could have it for a week. It's a used car.
You can put a new engine in it. It's a used car.
If somebody else wanted to buy that, they'd buy it certified pre-owned.
Right.
You think about it.
Yeah.
So, the only way you can make money on a car is if you keep it for like 80 years and it becomes a classic car.
But even then, I always tell you, like, you never know which cars are going to become the classic cars.
Right.
That's true.
You're risking it. You know, like people who had cars back in the day, they look at Beetles, like they're not worth what 1965 Cadillac or whatever those classic cars are. They're not worth the same. They didn't appreciate in value the same way. So just age doesn't really do anything. It's it's got to
That's right.
The Model T is like $1 million or something like that.
With Tesla?
Like no, the Model T, the Ford, like
that's the Ford.
Original
that's
one.
the 1920. Is that what you have in the garage?
I wish, man.
Yeah,
that'd be an investment. So 100 years, you gotta wait on your car, and then it becomes an investment.
I think that kind of just wraps it up for me as far as questions go, man. You really helped answer a lot of questions, and I think a lot of people are gonna get a lot of good advice from this. It's gonna help a lot of people. We're gonna go ahead and put all your information in the description for the video, for iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff. Do you want to let people know where they can find you or get more information from you if they wanted to?
Yeah, sure. You just go to buildabetterfinancialfuture.com. And that's my website. You'll be able to schedule a complimentary consultation if you want to. And we can just talk and see if I can help you out.
There you go. You guys heard it here first.
Cool.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll catch you guys on the next morning dinner.
Later, y'all.
Every time I come in the kitchen, you in the kitchen. In the goddamn refrigerator.
I sure am hungry.